The Utah Mammoth will return to action here shortly. Cole Bagley, Utah Mammoth insider for KSL Sports, joins us now. Cole, good morning.
Good morning, fellas. How are we doing?
Good. The men's hockey is down to the semifinals, and Cole's interview is brought to you by Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. Have you been surprised by anything you've seen in this tournament, or is this pretty much we're sitting right where you thought we'd be right now?
Yeah, I think for the most part, we're sitting right where everybody kind of imagined with the United States, Canada, and Finland in the Final Four. I think Slovakia is maybe the one surprise. You look at their roster, and there's not really any NHL stars on that team. It's a lot of, third and fourth line guys. It's, minimum contract guys. It's guys that are being scratched or on waivers. And so I think they've surprised some people, but, their path was a little bit easier. But now the United States will have an opportunity to play Slovakia. It's a team they need to take seriously. There's no night off in the Olympics. It can, swallow you alive, just as we've seen it do to some teams. So I'd say that's the only surprise. But, with those three teams, U.S., Finland, and Canada in the semifinals, I think things are shaping out the way that most people expected them to.
Okay, you say you got to take them seriously, but I'm still thinking that you think that they're going to win. So with that in mind, assuming, and when it's just for radio's sake here and the sake of discussion that they win, I know it's not an assumption, but we'll go on that line of thought. Who do you think they would play in the final, and then who do you dope that out in terms of what you think the odds would be?
Yeah, I mean, we're on a collision course for the United States and Canada in the gold medal game, and that's what everybody wants, right? The two best squads in the world with, arguably all-star lineups, from top to bottom. Every single line is a line that can make you pay. And so I would say that I'd be surprised if that's not what it is. I do think that Canada is going to have a little bit tougher time facing off against Finland. They've got a pretty good lineup as well. They've got a few stars on their team and, guys like Mikko Rantanen and what have you. So I'd say that Canada has drawn the tougher semifinal as opposed to the United States. But as I said before, it's the Olympics, right? You have one bad period, you have one bad shift, and suddenly you're trailing by a goal or two, and all of a sudden, you're done. Your Olympics are over. I mean, for the four teams remaining, all of them will at least compete for a medal when all is said and done. But, it's gold or bust for the United States. It's gold or bust for Team Canada. So both these teams will definitely have, a lot of work to do and a good challenge if they want to meet in the final.
Semifinals Friday afternoon, 1 o'clock. A lot of people are going to be watching. And will they see Keller play? He's played a little bit in two games, but not a lot, and he sat completely in the first two games. What are your expectations for what kind of ice time he might see here in the last two games in the semi, and whether it's the gold or bronze game?
Yeah, yesterday was tough for Keller. He had a really good game when he finally entered the lineup against Germany. He played his game, a game that a lot of, Mammoth fans are very familiar with. He's a very good facilitator. He plays with speed. He's confident on the puck. He battles in the dirty areas. So that earned him a spot in yesterday's game against Sweden, but unfortunately, he only took 6 shifts. He played a team low 4 minutes and 44 seconds, and I don't think he saw any ice time after his initial shift in the second period. And so through most of the second and then all of the third, and then, of course, in the overtime, Keller didn't touch the ice. I'd assume that there was something the coaching staff wasn't necessarily pleased with and decided to bench him for the rest of the game. So, I'm not entirely sure. It is tough to say right now. It's obviously, that spot is up for grabs between him and Kyle Connor. Kyle Connor played the first two games for the United States. He did not play well, so they gave Keller a chance. He did play really well against Germany, but then yesterday, must have just done something that the coaches didn't like. So I'd say it's up in the air for right now. But if he does play, I would expect, short minutes, probably, less than 10, at most 12. That just kind of seems to be what they're doing with some of those guys like that. So, yeah, we'll see how things shape out. If they skate tomorrow before the game and we see some lines, and if not, it'll be, game time before we know if he's going in or not.
Well, we saw that he used some slights as motivations in the past. Do you think he does it again?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. don't know if you guys saw, Sam Farnsworth interviewed Keller right after the game yesterday, and was asking him questions about Quinn Hughes' overtime winner, and just his reaction, and in his demeanor and the way he kind of carried himself, you could tell that he was disappointed. Obviously thrilled with the result, but disappointed in himself. Just his tone and kind of his body language. Keller's a really competitive guy. He's one of the most competitive athletes I've ever been around, and I'm sure that he's just eating himself with the way that he played. So yeah, I think that if he gets an opportunity to play again, I would expect him to come out with juice, to come out with energy, and to put forth a really good effort.
What about the other three guys who represent the Mammoth and were representing their different countries? What do you think of the way they've performed? What's their Olympic experience been like?
Yeah, for Karel Vejmelka was interesting. He didn't touch Olympic ice. He actually only dressed for one of the games, and he was a backup, and they never called his number. So Vejmelka didn't play in the Olympics, which was pretty surprising, especially the way that the tournament went for Czechia. Obviously, they pushed Canada to the brink yesterday, forced overtime. Dostal, who was their starting goaltender, played really, really well. But you have to imagine that if they would have given Vejmelka some minutes in the preliminary rounds, they may have had better seeding and not have been forced to go through Canada to try to get on to, further in the tournament. So that one's interesting. I'm not entirely sure why they benched him. He definitely, at a minimum, was the second best goaltender, if not, should have been the number one option based on how he's played over the last 6 to 8 weeks. So that was surprising. In terms of JJ Peterka, I think he had a good tournament. I think he scored a goal, had a couple assists. It was, just a good opportunity. Germany wasn't as deep as some of these other teams, so he was playing in the top six and, playing along a guy like Leon Draisaitl, who's, an MVP candidate every season. Just good experience for him. He played a lot of minutes, averaged, I think, between 24 and 26. So a lot of positives for Peterka. Ole Mata, it's been a good opportunity to play, right? I mean, he's been a healthy scratch for the Mammoth for a few months now. And, so for him to be able to play hockey, to play it at a high level, he hasn't played a ton of minutes either. I think he's averaging about 9, 10, 11. But his team has an opportunity to play for a medal. They'll face Canada, and I would assume that we'll see a little bit of Ole Mata. So overall, I think a good tournament for the Mammoth. Good amount of playing time, but obviously it's not a bad thing for Mammoth fans that Vejmelka got to rest. He didn't risk injury. He should be fully ready to go when he comes back. And then for these other guys, a good amount of minutes and an opportunity to play hockey at a really high level while avoiding, to this point, avoiding injury.
The Mammoth schedule then going forward? Not when the games. I'm talking about between now and when this season resumes.
Yeah, so they're skating. They've been skating. They skated the last 2 days. They've got practice here in about hour 45 minutes. So yeah, they're it's kind of like a mini training camp right now. Guys are starting to make their way back. Anybody who was not at the Olympics had to report 2 days ago. And then as guys fall out of the Olympic tournament, they'll start to make their way back. So there's a chance that we may see JJ Peterka today, and if not today, probably Saturday or Sunday. So yeah, they're just trying to get back in the swing of things. Long practices. The last 2 days they practiced about 2 hours, and they're just trying to get guys, kind of back into skating shape, and then going through, some of their offensive schemes. They did a lot of power play yesterday. So yeah, it's like I said, kind of a mini training camp between now and when they resume next week. The
Kings are the team that suffered the major injury in the Olympic tournament, and they are battling the Mammoth in the wild card race. They're trailing. They're down 4 points. How badly are they hurt by that?
Yeah, it's a valuable defenseman, to lose to injury for the rest of the year. It's an next man up mentality, on every roster. And, the Kings also got an upgrade via trade right before the Olympics in acquiring one of the best goal scorers in the league in Panarin. So I don't know that it'll really hurt them that much. Of course, you're not going to necessarily replace that guy, talent for talent. But, I would expect that, all the teams that are in the wild card race in the West, it is going to be a dogfight right down, I think, to the very last day of the regular season. I mean, there's 6, 7 teams that are all within about 7 or 8 points. So, for Utah, It's just about getting back to consistency. And I talked with Ian Cole yesterday and asked him, Ian Cole is one of the best veterans on the team. He's won 2 Stanley Cups. He's been in the league for almost 2 decades. And he just said that right now it's all about helping everyone on the team understand what playoff intensity is and that they need to play with that kind of intensity, starting next week. And he said that, look, we even had that discussion before the Olympics, helping guys understand the mentality we need to have. So, regardless of, what's going on with their opponents, Utah just needs to stay focused and, play their game.
U.S. and Canadian women, they start in about an hour and a half here. You got U.S. winning the gold medal game?
Yeah, I mean, they should, right? They set an Olympic record in the semifinal, posting 5 straight shutouts. They've outscored their opponents 31-1 over the course of the tournament. They haven't allowed a goal since before the opening ceremonies. They just absolutely dominated the Canadians about a week ago, 5-0. So, yeah, the United States is definitely the gold favorites. It would take, I think, a perfect effort from Canada to pull off the upset. So, yeah, I'm expecting gold for the women.
He's Cole Bagley. You can read him at KSLSports.com, and you can follow him on social media, and you can hear him here once a week talking hockey with DJ and PK. Cole, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next week when the NHL's going at it again.
All right, guys. Have a good day.
There's Cole Bagley, DJ and PK. Your feedback next. Stay with us.